Hi, Melanie.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I am in a fantastic mood and I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you here. And I kind of love to do a little intro for my listeners. If you want to just kind of give them a quick background about you, who you are, what you do, and how you got here.
Oh my gosh, I could start at any point in my journey. But I think the gist of it is that when I was about 25 years old, I kind of messed my life up a little bit. I had been in a relationship for 7 years that I knew was not the right relationship. I was in a career that wasn't fulfilling. Uh, just life was just not great. And then I broke up with my partner and I had helped him become the boss at the job I was at. And then he fired me from my job.
Oh,
And so I had to, the only way I could keep doing what I was doing was to work 200 kilometers outside of his radius. And so I ended up not being able to, you know, work properly. And it was a commission sales job. I couldn't sell anymore. I ended up going bankrupt and losing everything. And I was far away from home and I just lost myself, went bankrupt and ended up like sleeping in the front seat of my car in the winter. And my life just fell apart entirely. But in the falling apart, I rebuilt myself and spent the last decade completely reshaping my life, every single area of my life. And it's been such an incredible journey because the first few years I did it invisibly. My first few clients, I called myself the invisible coach. It was all this like under the radar, helping people as I was helping myself. And eventually, as I got stronger and better, I started showing up on social media and really documented my whole journey on social media. And now I have a global brand, an incredible business, an incredible relationship, an amazing relationship with my family, incredible friends, incredible everything. It's like I'm an entirely different human than I was 10 years ago. And so I help people reinvent themselves entirely and change absolutely everything about themselves with love and compassion and fulfillment, not with pressure and, outside validation, but like inner joy and fulfillment and happiness. And it's an incredible career.
that is so amazing. I relate to all of that on such a deep level. I think our journeys were very similar and very different, but probably the same 10-year span of just to me, it was in the most obnoxious way. I got everything I wanted and realized I had been chasing all of the wrong things, and it was a decision to um, kind of unclutter my life and figure out who I was and, where I went wrong and to, yeah, truly decide who I am. It's funny that we're talking on this immediately. I have a tattoo on my arm that says reborn. And my mom, bless her heart, she was like, how long have you had that? I didn't know where that, I said, well, so that's the name. That's what my name means. Renee means reborn. And I said it kind of fits really well with
Oh yeah,
the
it does in
journey that I've
French.
been on.
Renee,
Yeah.
reborn.
Yeah. See, I'm not wrong. It's not like I got a wrong Chinese symbol on me or
No,
something
you're
like
good. You're
that.
good.
Woo. Um, but yeah, so I'm really excited to dive into that for you. But it's so crazy to me when I hear your story, um, that, you know, when we go through those times and you just feel like it can't get worse, there's no way out, and you're stuck. I hate that sometimes those are like the birthing point for new things.
Yeah.
Like that's where we had to get. Do you feel like, you had to get to that point of, I don't want to say like rock bottom, but where you're
That's a
really,
good way to put it.
yeah, at a very, very low, your biggest low, to kind
Yeah.
of decide that you want to climb out?
Well, I don't think you have to hit rock bottom to climb out, but I think if you're going to hit rock bottom, you might as well.
Yeah.
And so I feel like what happens is just that a lot of people have this story of like they hit rock bottom and then they change their lives because there's this like, well, might as well. I'm not gonna, there's no more lower to go. So let's go back up. So that's usually why the rock bottom stories lead to these incredible breakthroughs, is because if I look at my example, when I could still tolerate the pain, I kept tolerating it. It's crazy how much we will tolerate for the tiny little bit of comfort that's left, because we are so afraid of losing whatever tiny little bit of comfort there is left. We don't live for extraordinary, we live for comfortable. And so as long as there's a little bit of comfort left, sometimes the comfort's in the lie, sometimes the comfort's in the victim mentality of being allowed to be upset, sometimes the comfort is in you know, the sad story that you fall asleep to and feel bad for yourself. Sometimes it's crazy the things that we hang on to for comfort. But when there's no comfort left or very little comfort left, and you go for the big thing, you're like, okay, I've got to get out of this. You don't know what it takes to get out. And this is what happened for me. It was like, the analogy I love to give is you swim to the bottom of the pool, and instead of having to worry about having enough oxygen in your lungs to swim back up, you just hit the bottom of the pool with your legs as hard as you can, and it catapults you back up. And this is what rock bottom does, because you go to the bottom and then you're like, I need to get back up. I need air. And so you push yourself off the ground, but you don't know how much you need to go back up. So you just give everything. When do we ever give everything? We never give everything. But when you don't, if it's like, if I don't get out of this, I die, you give everything. And in that moment, people go far beyond what they needed, and they actually end up doing something great. And that's what happened for me. I kicked off the bottom so hard to try to not die. Like, I've got to fix this about myself. I've got to heal this. I've got to move this. I've got to shake this. Like, this is non-negotiable. And I went so far past what I would have needed that I actually bumped into an excellent version of me. And I was like, this is crazy. Who was this? How was I available? Oh, could I do this all along? And then maintaining and growing that version of me was such a different life entirely than maintaining the sad, victim, broken, upset, you know, tired version of me that I'd spent the decade before that maintaining. This was a totally different reality, but it took everything I had. And I think the question is more, how do you get yourself to the point in your life where you're willing to give everything you've got with your own mind, like to choose that? And that's the work I do with my clients now. I help people get to the point of choosing to give everything they've got. And through the way that I speak and the way that I lead my programs, I get people to that place inside where it's like, I think I could choose this for me without needing the rock bottom. And so miracles are happening, and that's incredible. So I don't think you need it, because I've had so much evidence of people choosing it. And I'm so happy that they get to choose it, because it's a much better story. It's a much greater story to say, at any point I choose greatness, I go for it, then I have to hit rock bottom in order to be great. So I don't think you need it. But if you're gonna hit rock bottom, you might as well get out. And that's also the truth.
Right, right. Because I mean, unfortunately, I think some people hit rock bottom and they do stay there. Like, oh, everything went wrong and this is where I am now. This is my life. I'm stuck here, without taking the time to, yeah, maybe look above and kind of push off into reaching that sunlight. It kind of reminds me of, I mean, obviously this is a safer, happier version, but whenever I watch the movie Titanic and they go under the water, I always try to hold my breath for the whole time. And it just seems like almost impossible. Like, cause no matter how many times you've seen it, you kind of forget like how long
You
it
thrive
takes
in the
for
end.
them to reach the surface again. Right. Did you ever have moments like that where you're like, you feel like you're close to the surface, but it still feels like you don't know how much further to get there? Or for you, was it just truly felt like you didn't even pause and it was just a go?
No, that time in my life was really difficult. And I think that what it did for me and why I'm grateful for it is I feel like it gave me the strength to actually know I can do hard things. Not just to think I can, but to know I can. And tough times are such incredible teachers, but because of modern day manifestation and the way a lot of people teach it, people think they've done something wrong, that they're not good enough, that they somehow deserve the bad stuff, instead of seeing it like, this is a catalyst for growth. I've been playing too safe. I've been asking for big things and I'm not doing what I say I'm going to do. I'm too afraid. I'm not willing to find my edges. I'm not willing to go all in, but I've asked for greatness. And so the only way I'm actually going to do that is if I stop being afraid. And the only way I'm going to stop being afraid is if the thing I fear the most happens to me and I survive it. And so sometimes we manifest our greatest fears because that's the way out. And so that's what I see for me. It's like, I would never be who I am right now had I not gone through that rock bottom, not because I needed to go rock bottom, but because I needed to know that I would survive rock bottom. My biggest fear was to go bankrupt. It was my biggest fear. My dad went bankrupt when I was a little kid and it completely changed our family. And for me, bankrupt was scarier than death. I'd never seen anyone die, but I'd seen bankruptcy, and bankruptcy sucked the life out of our family. And so I was terrified that it would happen to me. And I lived with that fear for all of my childhood and all of my adolescence. Like, when I grow up, I need to make money so I don't go bankrupt. And then I'm 25 and I go bankrupt. But can you imagine if I didn't go bankrupt, I'd still be afraid of going bankrupt. That still would have been there for me. I still would have feared it. So the only way out is through. And so this is why you either solidify your mind, you either work on your mindset, your body, saying like, there's nothing that can take me out. I don't actually need to fear these things, because if they happened, they'd probably just make me stronger. So why don't I just work on being stronger, and then those things never need to happen? Or you say, I trust in life. If it's supposed to be a smooth ride, it's gonna be. And if there's things I need to learn, I'm gonna. And let me just be my best, do my best, work on my internal capacity to hold stress and fear and sadness and disappointment and joy and gratitude. Like, let me stretch my nervous system so I can handle all of this if hard stuff comes, because I trust it will only make me better, because it's who I am and it's how I respond to life. Either way, you've got to stretch, you've got to change if you're going to evolve and grow. So it either happens smoothly because you focus on it and you choose it, or it happens in a really like not so pleasant way. But when you look back in hindsight, you realize you're a greater person for it. And I think it's just making peace with the fact that life isn't perfect, and that however your greatness is going to come and however you get stretched, you welcome it and you're going to be okay. And that's the key to growth and evolution.
Yeah. So I love that I mean, I don't love it. It sounds awful, but the fear of bankruptcy, where you talk about that, truly, like, do you feel like that had a huge impact? Because this is something I created a course called Shopping Rehab, and a big part of it is teaching people to let go of the mentality that they have around money and stuff and shopping, and because a lot of times we think we buy stuff because we want it, but really there's so much deeper stuff going on behind why we can't stop impulse buying. Um, but that mentality, it's so interesting that you say that, like that fear, I don't want to go bankrupt. I don't want to go but if that's like kind of your inner mantra, do you feel like that led to you actually be going through the process of being bankrupt because it was something that you were repeatedly fearing?
I don't believe that it's the mantra that caused it. I think it is the genuine feeling that I had, or the belief I had that I would not survive it, that made me attract it. Because what I believe is that if you tell Mother Nature, God, the universe, if this happens to me, I won't survive. Like, I won't survive this breakup. I had also once said, if I ever get cheated on, I'll never survive. If ever I get cheated on, the thing you say, if this happens to me, I'll never survive. God, Mother Nature, the universe says, we can't have you thinking that. You'll never live. So it's got to happen so that you can show yourself that you will survive. And so it's not because it's a mantra, it's because it's so deeply stopping my life that unless I have it happen, I'm going to be stuck in that identity of a person who's afraid of that happening to me for the rest of my life. The only way my identity changes from the person who's afraid of it to the person who has survived it is if it happens. And so then I studied like nervous system regulation and the understanding of like why do we fear these things, and why do we do the thing where we really say, if this happens to me, this is going to be so bad, and like, oh, I may, if I this ever happened to me, I'll never make it. Like, why do we even say things like that? Why do we spend so much time thinking and contemplating things that are actually terrible? Is we're trying to prepare our body for the kind of pain that would come, so that it doesn't shock us when it does, because that's also stressful. And so another thing that's really helpful, which I didn't know how to do before, is to train your nervous system a little bit more, to be able to hold more fear and more anxiety and more stress and more pressure and more happiness and more joy and more gratitude, like big emotions that when you have so many big emotions can literally blow your nervous system. It's like you take a house and you plug something in every socket, you blow it. And that's what happens. A lot of people's nervous systems just blow. So if you blow your nervous system, then you've got to rebuild and all the things. But if you stretch it and you learn, you don't necessarily need that to happen. You can do it. You can stretch yourself with your mind, with your feelings, with your body. But that takes care and time and studying. And people don't want to do that because it's not comfortable and they'd rather watch Netflix. So the work I'm doing now is helping people stretch their nervous system so that their fears don't feel like they would kill them anymore. When you get to the point where you're like, if that happened, I'd be okay, it doesn't need to happen anymore. It only needs to happen if it's hindering your quality of life so much that unless it happens, you're going to be less of a person your whole life. Then it has to happen. That's why we attract it, because the fear is so big, it's literally altering your life.
Well, that's a huge way of looking at it. I love that so much. That way of looking at it, I think I've never really kind of formed it together in my mind to see it that way. So I'm going to be marinating in that for the rest of the day for sure.
I
Um,
like that.
but this is so funny, and I feel like this happens all the time where these synchronicities kind of pop into my conversations when I have an interview on the podcast. Literally just happened to be popping through Instagram and saw a thing where it said nervous system regulation doesn't mean, you know, not it means holding space. Like you just said, like it means holding the space for big emotions that are not great, like not only good emotions, where it doesn't mean we feel great all the time. It means we get more comfortable with those uncomfortable emotions.
Yeah.
Um, how do you kind of help people do that? I think I chronically struggled my life. I've gotten to a place now where I am far more comfortable with those big emotions. But I'm definitely one of those people who would get so good at pushing down the negative emotions that I didn't even know I was doing it. You know, I had no clue that it was something that I was ignoring. I wasn't sure what I was ignoring. I just got so good at smiling, picking it up, brushing it off, or at least trying to make myself think that's what I was doing. How do
Yeah.
you help people kind of feel okay with sitting with those really uncomfortable thoughts and feelings?
It's a process and you've got to want to go through it. That's one of the big things. Like you have to understand the value of it. And I think a lot of people get nervous system regulation wrong. Just everything is kind of taught on the internet in a way that you could get 5 different descriptions of it and then you don't know what you're doing anymore. But what I love about what this really means is it's not that like, oh, this is too much for my nervous system, I can't do it. That, or, oh, my this happened and it completely dysregulated my nervous system. Like I hear it a lot like that, how people talk about it. And it's not like that to me. The way I see it, it's like you wire an entire house on a circuit board, and that circuit board is the nervous system of the house. And so if the circuitry isn't wired properly, or if there's too many outlets, or if all the charges of the biggest things are all on the same breaker, it's easy to blow the fuse. And so you've got to, when you're building a house, you've got to build it with the breaker in mind. You've got to build it with the circuitry in mind. And it's the same thing for us. Like we're basically rebuilding our house with the circuitry in mind. We're saying, what are the things that literally right now in my life are make everything jump? Like everything is on the same breaker. So if you're like money and my husband are on the same breaker, I need to rewire my stuff, because anytime I've got a money thing, my relationship blows. Every time I've got a relationship thing, the money blows. It's like I've got to look at, where is it that I blame the whole world? Like I hate everything when all this is attached to the same breaker. It's like patterns, noticing where everything blows all at once. And then it's about first and foremost, it's caring about having a great circuit board, which is not something that people would tend to think about, because I don't know why we're not taught about this as human beings. It's such an important part of us, but there are things that will help, that will blow your circuit board, or literally like you haven't slept enough, you haven't eaten enough, you haven't drank enough water, you need a poop. Like it's literally the simplest life functions, but sometimes you're operating on not enough sleep, no good food, not enough water. You're all backed up, you don't feel good, and then you're fighting with somebody and you think it's their fault, and really it's like your body is this close to blowing. So the first thing is the intellect, the intelligence to say, I'm wired a certain way and I want to reorganize the wires. I want to rebuild myself so that things don't blow. This is what I want. It's first step. And then the next thing is realizing, what are the triggers? What are the things that blow your circuit? So the inner stuff like food and, you know, just regular things, sleep, poop, that kind of thing. But then there's other things like trauma, things that may have happened to you in your past that really do go and activate a little thing inside of you that just flips a switch. And learning, breath work, tapping, things that are so easy to do, that you literally just use your own body to regulate your feelings. Even just breathing, people don't breathe. There's things you can do when you're on the verge of panic that can be really helpful, but if you don't understand that it's literally all science, it's not just this kumbaya, take a deep breath, you're going to be okay. It's like you're not getting enough oxygen and you're freaking out. Breathe. Have a glass of water. Go lay down and try to have a nap. You're going to feel entirely different when you wake up. Valuing the human body and saying sometimes you have to see yourself like a real thing, not just who your spirit is and what your thoughts are, which you also get to work on, because then you might notice, on top of having your body is not working properly right now, and on top of you're not actually seeing yourself as a real thing that's not functioning properly right now, you've got these patterns, these thoughts, these things you say to yourself, old memories that you keep in your back pocket for self-sabotage. You've got tendencies to be really negative towards yourself, or jealous or comparing and all these things. You haven't done the emotional and spiritual work. And so it's all of this together, but normalizing it. Because I think the other thing is people weaponize this in people to make them feel not good enough, like they'll never get what they need until they're, wise enough to never get emotional, and unless they're stable enough to never be negative, and unless, then they'll never manifest, and people feel even worse about themselves and there's no way out. Instead of like, this is normal. If you treat a human the way you are treating your human, it is inevitable that the human will respond this way. You cannot deprive yourself of all basic functions and expect yourself to thrive. You cannot think these things and feel these things and behave any other way than the way you're behaving. There's nothing wrong with you. You're literally doing everything perfect based on what you've been putting in the circuitry. Like, the things are blowing as they should. The things are short circuiting as they should. Everything is malfunctioning perfectly. So you're nailing it. But if this is not the outcome, then let's learn how to make the human work. And let's live a more full, meaningful life towards adding meaning to the things you want to have meaning. Let's focus on fulfillment rather than just success and validation. Let's change the focus. So it's a whole life change, one day at a time, one move at a time. And I feel like there's the people who want to do the work, and then there's the people who just hope that there's a magical key that'll just make them more successful and more happy. And then they just want to bypass the whole thing and just get the result. And then they end up having to learn the lesson over and over again until it breaks through. But the people who genuinely get it, that this is it's a rewiring of your entire being, it's the greatest journey.
Oh yeah. That's I just relate or feel so much of everything that you're saying. And it's so funny. I always say this like every single episode. I feel like anyone listening, they're like, she says this all the time, but it's true, you guys. Like I feel like the conversations that I need are always the ones, that I connect with the right people at the right time. Because this is kind of where I have been. This is where my journey started largely was, yeah, I love the metaphor that you use of the circuit board. And that's definitely something else like to just kind of think on it. And I'm a very visual person. So like the idea of putting that in my mind of like plugging in outlets is really helpful. Um,
Good.
yeah, yeah. And it was for me, minimalism and decluttering was kind of like a way of like decluttering my circuit boards in a way. Like I need to create space to figure out what's next for me. So I very much relate to it. And I kind of feel like I'm in that transition again. But now I'm like, well, shoot, how do I do it this time? Do you know what I mean? Like, because last time it kind of seemed like such an easy, I knew what the steps were. I just felt like I needed to kind of create space or, that type of thing. And lately it's been like, okay, well, I have all the space I need. I don't know, I don't know how to figure it out. So I love that new concept. So how do I know, I guess would be my question, like, or how, give me, I mean, maybe some examples you have from clients that you've worked with of how to tell when those circuits are firing on the same switch, like you said, like money and your husband, if money falls apart, your relationship does as well. Like, how can we kind of recognize those things in ourselves?
So this is where contemplation comes in. And for me, contemplation is like thinking, feeling, observing without judgment. And so you can contemplate and journal. You can just think, you can contemplate with another person and talk through things. But ultimately, you'll notice like if things are difficult in your relationship, but that just makes you closer to your kids, you'll notice like, or it just doesn't impact your kids. You'll maybe see, okay, that's not on the same circuit board. As a matter of fact, when that light blows, that light becomes brighter. They're not on the same circuit board. But then for some reason, when money doesn't go well, then my relationship also doesn't go well. So I've put those on the same circuit board. You might see like the cleanliness of my house and my kids are on the same circuit board. If the house isn't clean, that immediately impacts my kids. Or if I'm not having a good time with my kids, I'll notice how much of a mess that the house is. There's things that are on the same circuit board, but the only way you'll even see it is by looking at it. It's the only way. And so having conversations with yourself, like, how does it serve me to have those be connected? Like, where do I escape my own responsibility by connecting both of these things? And so a lot of times it'll be like, well, if I'm having a hard time with money and I make it a relationship problem, I avoid the fact that I haven't been making as much money as I want to make. It's a numbing of my own responsibility that I put two things on the same circuit board. I try to avoid my responsibility. If when the house isn't clean, the kids get impacted, where am I avoiding responsibility of my house looking the way I want it to look and putting that responsibility on my kids? Where do I connect that? And so a lot of times it's an avoidance of responsibility, something we don't want to look at, something we don't want to fail at, something we don't want to be held responsible for. And so we connect two things together so someone can take the fall or something can take the fall. But then we still don't feel adequate and we still don't feel good. It's just harder to figure out why, because now there's a scapegoat, there's a person that's taking the fall and we still don't feel good. But escapism doesn't actually help us heal, doesn't help us regulate, doesn't help us be fulfilled in the slightest. It just helps us with a narrative or a story that takes us out of the trouble. So, but now I'm sad and it's not my fault. So now I'm a victim. So now I'm even less regulated. So the whole mess. So it's just noticing where, and a lot of it is, usually childhood behavior of being like, when I was a little kid, if I'd get in trouble for something like this, if I had someone to blame, sometimes it was less painful. So maybe it'll help me to do something like that. So it's just noticing our patterns, but with no judgment. And that's the hardest part, is that when people notice patterns like this, they're like, what's wrong with me? I need to fix this about me. Instead of this gentle, like, yeah. Okay, so I wonder, how else can I look at this? Or can I notice when I'm doing that and take a breath and just be like, whoa, I was about to make this my relationships problem, or I was about to take this out on the kids. Like, what actually do I need to do here? Noticing what I don't feel like doing. Yeah, because sometimes you'll realize as you go deeper down the rabbit hole, everything is more connected than you think. Because it's like, okay, well, I blame my kids for my messy house and I blame my husband for the lack of money. But the real truth is, if I made my own money, I would get someone to come clean the house so I wouldn't be fighting with my kids or my husband. And so really, if I looked at myself, I would see that I'm not bringing in the income that I want to bring. And that's the thing I'm avoiding by being mad at everybody else. And I don't want to look at that. And I don't want to feel about that because I can't handle how bad I feel about me. Ah. Okay. And then it's gentle compassion, because everybody's going through this stuff. Everybody's got something they're avoiding. Everybody's got something they're running from. Everybody's got something they're trying to control the way it looks so they don't have to deal with. It's not like you are a broken person that's doing weird stuff. It's like, this is human behavior. It's normal. And I think when we normalize this stuff, it's a lot easier to look at it and to say, okay, how do I want to handle this? Like when you have a toddler and they're freaking out about something and you go to a mom group and they're like, oh, yes, this is the phase coming through. You're like, okay. But until that moment, you're like, what is wrong with my 1-year-old? Like, why? What is going on? What is wrong with my 6-month-old? Like, why is it freaking out all the time? Unless you know and it's normal, it feels like there's something wrong. And I don't think human beings talk about the human experience enough. We think we're just supposed to just be these perfect beings and you're supposed to keep it all together and have it all together and it's all about how it looks, but like who cares about how it looks? It's about what it is, what your real experience is. And we have such similar experiences, but we don't talk about the human experience, especially not as adults. We're not really around other people. We don't learn with other people. We don't continue to evolve. It's not part of the curriculum of a grown human adult to continue to learn. So we just never learn about this stuff. And we're all coping, thinking we're the only one that's a little weird, trying to hide our quirks, thinking if people knew, when in fact, we're all the same. And
Yeah.
normalizing it makes it that we can become greater at the things that matter to us.
Yeah, that's so huge. I love that, and you're right, I don't think enough people talk about it or that we, you know, think it's our own private thing, which I love that it's kind of interesting that we all might be wired differently, but we're all still, you know, mixing or, not liking the way it's somehow not working for us in some way.
Yeah.
That's a really and I think that I'm sure the example of the kids and the messy house is really helpful to anybody listening. I think I have a lot of women who listen, a lot of moms who listen, and that's a very common thing that I hear from people is, um, it would be so much easier to clean my house if I could get my husband to do it. It would be so much easier to if my kids could get on board, like, and I'm always like, "How about you in your closet?" Or, "How's your stuff going?" Is that part overwhelming for you? Um, and I kind of am like, I should just clear my schedule and start thinking about where I overlap. So I don't know if you feel like this would be the same, but this is what came to mind when you were saying that. I noticed this yesterday because my niece came over to visit. Uh, and I don't ever seem to, like, pre-clean before people arrive, but sometimes it's like people will come and then I start cleaning my house. And I don't
Okay.
know necessarily why, but I'm like, maybe I should think it's just a small thing. But as I was vacuuming yesterday, I'm like, why do I wait until the people are here? Or is like, do I just notice how dirty my house is the second they come through the door? Where I'm like, I should vacuum right now, which is like the least thing I should be doing. I should just be present and talking with the people that came to visit. But I just immediately go into cleaning mode. So that's kind of funny that you put that in little nugget in my mind.
Okay. I'm gonna answer this in 1 second. I just want to make sure this door stops doing this. I'm gonna text my partner.
Okay. Oh, excuse me.
Okay. So what I look at, what I would look at, and this is where, like, obviously I've been doing this for a long time, so probably this would not be your first instinct to look at this. But do you actually feel a little uncomfortable when your niece is there? Like, you don't know what to say to her, you don't really know how to entertain her really, or you don't really know what to do for a minute. And cleaning feels like the thing you could do that makes sense, that you're doing it. And it's also avoiding the fact that you would have to do anything like, I've already cleaned the house, everything's already done, let me just be with you.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. I don't think so right off the bat because I do this with other people too. Like, so I just kind of clicked yesterday. I was like, I do this all the time. Why? Um,
But it could be that the first few moments of a person coming in, you feel awkward. Like,
maybe, yeah.
this is what it is. A lot of the times it's just like I keep a thing up my sleeve so that when the little weird moment of like, hi, before we're comfortable and before it's natural, I can do something that I feel super calm with, and it's not like all of a sudden your niece shows up and you start doing a jigsaw puzzle. Like, it makes sense that you're vacuuming. And so it's like, okay, so I'm just gonna vacuum, and then it's like her presence becomes normalized. She's in the house, it's normal, she's been there for a minute. And whoever it is, whether it's a friend or your brother, or whoever comes in the house and just like, okay, I'm just gonna do this real quick. And some people will notice they will start making snacks the minute people walk in instead of having snacks ready, or who would like a beverage, or who would like, or some people are like, I'm gonna go to the store at some point, I'll just need to go pick up a few things. And it's this moment of like, this keeps me in charge, it gives me a door, it gives me a thing. And so sometimes it's just that, it's just like this one little moment of unease that I can't really explain. This completely neutralizes it, and then I'm done.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. I'm gonna have to just kind of think on it. Just funny that I noticed it yesterday. Now we're talking on this sort of subject, but you're probably right because as you say that, I think about it. I'm like, when I vacuum, I think I still converse. I start the conversation, but maybe it's nice to, or maybe it takes off that heat of like, hi,
How have
like
you been?
immediately
Yeah.
I'm gonna do nothing and put my focus solely on you. How have you been? Maybe it's kind of my attempt to avoid, you know, making
The
them feel
intensity of
overwhelmed as
that
well as
first
myself,
moment.
right?
Yeah,
Oh, that's just so funny. All right. Well, thanks for the clarity.
of course.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I've definitely noticed that with myself. So this is something I share a lot too, and I guess I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. When I share about my downsizing journey, that I wanted to create the space in my life. I recognized that I was giving my stuff a lot of significance. Maybe like and I guess I could think on this more, but like where my wires were maybe mixed up where when I was having a bad day, go shopping. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the my money and the my shopping was affected by my life. There was some wires that were crossed. So by kind of pausing all of that, I kind of was able to maybe start to recognize those patterns and recognize those things. Um, but I went through this process of when I was feeling stressed, I would kind of go through and declutter and eliminate because it gave me a sense of control. But something I shared about, I just did like a quick little TikTok video on it, kind of feeling like I was just the only weirdo who was doing this. But so many people related. And I've had people say, like, I followed you from that video specifically where I said, I knew that once I was done decluttering, I was going to have to face something. There was, like I was distracting myself. And so I got to this point where I had really decluttered everything. Like I felt like a neutral. I felt like I was at a good place. There wasn't anything else to donate. And then I kind of had to do the deeper work that had been lingering there. But I was, do you think, I mean, but do you think that's healthy or do you think it's just another way of avoiding the inevitable of the work?
Well, the thing is, if we look at like what's healthy and what's not healthy, I like different words because I feel like healthy is are we looking at pristine health or are we looking at you're making yourself sick? Because those are there's a spectrum. But what is true is that human beings avoid their feelings a lot because they don't know how to handle them. Like we literally were not taught. I don't know how breath work and tapping are not the two first things human beings learn being a human being. Understanding like sometimes you're going to feel not good and it's just because your body needs some rest or some water or some this. And here's how you breathe. And here's like, why is it that even with little kids, we ask them, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Like, how is that? I just don't understand how we have not taught these tools to us earlier in our lives when they were available. But we avoid our feelings because from an early age, people say, don't cry, don't be sad.
Yeah,
Why are you sad? There's no reason to be sad. So we're all messed up and confused about our feelings in the first place. So when we feel something, we tend to look for like, what's going to make me feel better? And the fun thing of what's not going to make me feel better is tends to be the not so healthy thing. Same as when you're like, don't be sad, here's a cookie. Don't be sad here. Let's watch a movie. Don't be sad here. Let's go do this thing that I know is going to make you want a candy, you want a lollipop, like la 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 la. We'll go with that thing first. So it's normal that we go to that thing first. Don't be sad. Let's go shopping.
right.
Don't be sad. Let's go, do the thing. But then you rack up debt or you do this, you do that, things that are not so good for you. Then eventually you realize I'm sad and I'm broke. Or
Yeah.
I'm sad and I can't move for the clutter in my house. Like this doesn't work. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're now going to start breath work and tapping and learning how to breathe and learning how to take care of yourself and regulating your nervous system. It just means that you're now going to find the culprit for your sadness, which is too much mess, too much shopping, too much whatever. So now you're going to go into another journey, which is like, let me free myself from what I've done. Now, this feels like the healthy distraction. Now I'm doing something good for me. This is right. This is healthy. It is. But the thing is, what's the thing that caused the shopping?
Right.
And what's the thing that caused the hyper purging? Comes from the same place of avoiding the feeling that you're feeling, thinking if I do this, I'll feel better, or if I do that, I'll feel better. Is there something wrong with that? No, everybody does it for any different reason. Shopping and purging, binging and dieting, being drunk and being sober, dating and being single. Like, everybody has their own version of it. This human behavior. But the thing is, the real work on the inside is so simple that it's actually boring, that it's actually weird, that it's hard to grasp. And we don't like that. We like tangible. What's wrong? How can I fix it? Because that's from birth how we've been brought up. If there's something wrong, you've got to know what it is, and then you do something to fix it, and then you feel better. So when we've just got like my nervous system's shot, like I don't know what that means. I don't know what I need to do. What's tapping going to do for me? What's breathing going to do? Like breathing, I know. What's that going to do for me? But the fact is, the simple problem is infuriating to the human. So we create complex problems so that we know how to fix the thing that we think is the problem that we created in order to not deal with the simple problem. So it's just softening into the feelings that we have. A lot of times your sadness is not wrong. There's nothing wrong. Like, why are you sad? I don't know. Because it's my time of the month. Because I ate too much sugar and gluten and I haven't slept enough. And now my emotions are not regulated. Like they're not solid. Okay, so what do I do? Well, you need to have a nap. I can't have a nap. You need to drink more water. I already drink water. You need to breathe. I do breathe. That we escape the simple things when in fact the complex problem seems easier to fix. So we take the simple problem and avoid it, create a complex problem that makes us feel like we've got some validation if we solve it, and start building complex problems that we can then enjoy the feeling of triumph and thriving over our problems that we invented in order to evade or run away from the simple problem that wasn't a problem to begin with. It was just humanity.
That's really interesting. I feel like I do that all the time. As I'm thinking about it, and I I'm all about simple, or I try to be, but I tend to I overcomplicate just naturally. It's just something and I don't think I'm alone in that. Um,
No,
I'm not, right?
you're not. This is what we do.
That's so funny, and I'm just trying to think as you're talking, so it's probably terrible because 'cause I'm like, I have no questions. I'm just thinking about my own life and myself now, but oh well, sorry everybody else. Um, but where it could be just such a simple problem, like I never even thought it could be that simple, like
I know.
water or
Yes.
rest. Um, and you're very, very right. And I can't think of any specific examples, but I know where I'm like, oh, I have to do, and I always add like really monumental things that to my plate, like think that I have to. Like I add those have tos. Gotta get this done. I gotta get this done. And then I get to a point where I just am so overwhelmed. And it was like, why did I focus on any of like that stuff didn't really need to be done, but I like somehow get myself to believe that it did. Does that make
Like when
sense?
you think, yes, when you think of a little baby starts crying. What do they need?
Well, yeah, yeah. Oh,
They need to drink.
they're tired or they're hungry or yeah.
You're never going to be like, oh, is it your bills? Is it because you're thinking about how hard it's going to be to learn English and you're overwhelmed by how not enough English you've put into your schedule today? You know,
Oh,
is it because you haven't put your toys away and you're thinking about the overwhelm and the clutter in your room? Is that what you're thinking about? It's like, no. They need a burp, they need a poop, they need a nap, they need water, they need food, they need something. And we go to that immediately. We know, oh, he's fussy, he didn't have enough sleep. Oh, he's fussy, he didn't drink enough. Oh, it's because she's not, she hasn't been she's been teething. She's been feeling not so good lately. But when it's us, it's like, oh, it's probably because I never completed the book that I've been writing for the last 3 years. That's probably my problem. And also my kitchen's a mess. That's probably the problem. Let me do a to-do list of everything that I should do. That's probably the reason why I'm feeling a little odd, because it can't possibly be that my nervous system's shot. That would be preposterous. It's probably the kitchen. It's probably, but if we make sure the basics are covered, then we get to enjoy having a pristine kitchen because that's something that makes us happy. And it's so different. Then you live for fulfillment instead of it's probably the lack of this that makes me sad. It's like nothing makes me sad. I take care of my nervous system. I take care of my life. I take care of my body. I take care of my human. And then I get to say, what makes me happy? I'd love to have a clean kitchen. I'd love to have a pristine house. I'd love to have this. And then you do what makes you happy. And that's a totally different order.
so what do you recommend? Because I'm not going to start bawling my eyes out here, but I am genuinely so we're putting my dog down at the end of the week. Let's not talk too much about it because this will be a depressing therapy session. But what do we do in those times when like I mean, I guess I could say there is a problem. There is something that's making me, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Is it going, do you feel like it's still just going back to, because right now I'm like, you're talking, I'm like, I need a nap. That's what I
You do
need.
need a nap.
I need a nap. Like something, it has made me sad. There is something that's causing me heartache right now.
Yeah.
Um, but
But
do you
being
think
sad
it's
makes you tired. First of all,
Yeah,
being
yeah,
sad makes you tired. When a baby cries for however much time, they usually fall asleep. It takes a lot of energy to be sad. And you know what else? It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to continue to function for everybody else while you're sad. That takes double the energy. But the fact is, what would you say to a small baby whose pet goes? Because the small child loves their pet. Are they allowed to be sad? Are they allowed to be sad until they're sleepy and then they need a nap? Like they're allowed to have all of that. And so the fact is, there's nothing you can do to take away this sadness. So there's nothing wrong. You're just sad.
yeah,
And so what do I do when I'm sad? I give myself time to cry. I give myself space to grieve. I give myself time to sleep. I make sure I drink a lot of water to hydrate myself. I make sure I don't try to stuff it down. I let myself feel what I feel. And then it's like a wave. Eventually, grief passes. We're built to handle grief. We're supposed to. Human beings live and pass. Our pets live and pass. Moments in life live and pass. We have to grieve things. It's part of the circuitry. We're supposed to, we're built for this. So this is not an anomaly. There's nothing wrong, but you are sad about what's happening. That is normal. And so the more you fight against it, for it not to be, try to think of everything else it should be. Shouldn't be this sad. Try to avoid, try to think of something else. You'll be more exhausted, more stressed, more overwhelmed because the body is telling you that is not necessary. We just need to like watch a sad movie, like watch Old Yeller and eat popcorn and cry is what we need right now
yeah,
because we need to be sad because that is literally that is all that is there. And you try to bury it and you try to do anything but this, and you're going to need double the energy just to survive because you're trying to lie about what you feel. How do you even function when you're going against yourself that way? And with a little kid, you wouldn't want your kid to be like, I'm not sad. Let me go play with my truck. I don't care. I'm not sad. Let's have ice cream. Like you'd be like, let's sit and cry. Come here. Come here. And that would be the normal way to take care of a human. Then we grow up and we forget that's the way.
yeah. That seems so simple. I love that. Um, and it's something I definitely know that I need to give myself the space to do more. Um, and so, okay, given this example a lot before where my son was in the hospital. We were in the middle of downsizing our house. Like it was just like my stepdad was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. It was just like a cluster storm of awful in my life. And I appreciated so much. The neurologist who was working with my son sat me down and he said, when all this is done, when he starts to get better, he said, you'll probably fall apart, mom. Like, and I was like, okay, perfect. Like, I'm just such a like go getter. I've like wrote it down, like, I'll make a note of that. Thank you. Like, I am one of those people um who, and now I kind of do that though. So, and I guess I feel like this is a good thing, but kind of finding that balance currently where I'm at in this space is like I told myself, just get through today and you can follow apart tomorrow. Like tomorrow I can take my nap. Tomorrow I can drink my water, that kind of thing. That's what I told myself today, if I'm being totally honest with you. I was like, tomorrow you can go ahead and fall apart. Today I'm gonna need you to step it up. How do we find this balance because I think as adults, like we have these obligations, these things where, a baby has the time to take a nap or fall apart, and a lot of us feel like we don't. Do you
Yeah.
think it's really important to kind of allow ourselves that space?
Yes, but also there are things that you might see as giving yourself time to fall apart that aren't. What falling apart is going to look like is taking a week to literally cry and sleep. But that's not the same as making sure you go to bed at a reasonable time, drinking water, making sure you're getting really good food in your body, taking time to just breathe during the day and saying, there will be time to grieve. I will take this time. But for now, let me make sure my body's operating at its best. Like, am I doing what's best for me in this time? Instead of just like, doesn't matter, none of it matters. We'll deal with all of it later. And that's what we tend to do. So it's like, how much you wouldn't say to your baby, like, okay, this is a good example. You're in the middle of the grocery store and the baby wants something now. And you can feel the panic starting to rise. You're going to want to tell them no. Like, no, you do not have a fit in the middle of the store. What are you telling them they can't do right now is scream and cry. But you wouldn't tell them they can't have a sip of water and they can't go to the bathroom and they can't, those are things that you'd be like, sit down, breathe, have some water. You'd give them all the right things to make sure they don't fall apart in the middle of the store. And you'd understand that it's possible that the next breakdown at home is going to be double because this one's going to be pent up from earlier today. But you'd rather deal with that later at home than in the grocery store. But you're not going to make them not drink and not breathe and not relax and just shake them and be like, stop feeling everything. No more drinking, no more breathing until we get home. But that's what we do. We stop everything. So instead of saying like, there is one breakdown that I know I'm going to need space for, don't have time for that right now. But let me make sure I'm so good with myself with everything else though. And it's you telling yourself, I got you. I'm giving you the best. I know you don't have time to fall apart right now. You will have time. I love you. You treat yourself like someone you love. Have a sip of water, sit for a minute, have a breath. You got this. You're okay. Instead of, okay, you got to just pull yourself together and you don't have time for that and you can't do that. That's where it's difficult. And where we know our nervous system, it hasn't been tended to over a while, is that any kind gesture makes us fall apart. And so if it's like the minute you would just say, just sit for a second, it's okay, have a glass of water. Like I can't even have that because anybody that's nice to me, it's gonna make me cry. So I need to be bullied. I need to be thirsty and starving and operating on fumes because the minute I have any kind of comfort, I'm going to cry. And so that also shows us like I need to be in absolute deprivation in order to be thriving to survive, in order to not give myself anything, in order to not break down at all. That's how you also know, oh, this is a very great indicator of how I treat myself. And so strengthening yourself is like, I can be kind to me. I can take a breath. I can have a sip of water. I can treat myself like someone I love, and I can trust myself enough to know there'll be space for my feelings. That's a different kind of relationship with yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. To me, like when you say that, it kind of feels like I do feel like I've gotten in a really good place of I just know I'm like walking or working out, like moving my body, that helps. Like I know that helps me. I know that makes me feel better. Drinking my water, like I do have a lot of those basic practices down, but it's a very interesting thought that to see the places where I um and I think I'll have to do a little more noticing for myself personally. Those times, there will be certain times in my life when I stop those things. Like
Yeah.
they're really good. They're a habit. I'm very consistent with those things, but I'll have times pop up in my life. And this, I guess I will give myself a pat on the back because I texted a friend. I said, it's just going to be a lot of outdoor walking for me for the next week or so, just fresh air and breathing. I know that's going to help me through these tough times. Hopefully no one speaks to me. Like no one says hi to me on the street because that'll be terrible. Um, but there are times that I'm going to have to start to think about where I feel like I don't have the time for the workout. I don't have the time for the walk. I don't have the time for um or I don't get to right now. I kind of think I put that pressure on myself like, no, you don't get that right now. It's like am I trying to
Punishing
deprive
almost.
myself? Right. And I can't think of it what it is, but I'm gonna have to start noticing and paying attention. So thank you for that.
It was my absolute pleasure.
Yeah, oh, this has been absolutely amazing. I definitely have an entire new way of looking at not just my next week ahead, which I truly appreciate, but my life going forward. So, how can people continue to stay connected with you? Like social media's website, if people want to learn more or connect more and keep hearing more from you.
So crazy enough, I still don't have a website. I built everything I've built really connecting with people. And so my social media is the place, either Alpha Femme on Instagram or my Facebook, Melanie and Layer on Facebook, or my Alpha Femme group. I often do master classes and you get to know me on my social media. And then if anything ever feels, good, you can reach out and get links to whatever you want. But my social media really is the platform. And I want to give you one more thing before I hop off. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I really believe in is that we get to have lives that we love. And it's so different to have a life that you love, that you built it because you love it and you built it because it made you happy, versus to do what you think you should in order to be happy. Those are completely different, but we don't really know the difference. We just go with like, well, I should have a good career and I should have a good relationship and I should do these things for myself and I should make this amount of money and I should be able to do these things and I should, and none of that actually gives you the same feeling as I would be okay without any of this stuff because the simple things of life are taken care of. And then I get to go on a holiday and I get to do a job that I love and I get to live from my purpose and I get to receive big amounts of money and my body can handle it. And I'm able to handle pressure and I can have a high powered job with a lot of responsibility and I can make an impact on the planet because I like it, because I want to. It's so different to do that. And one is a solid foundation where you add everything you love on top of it. And the other one is a wobbly foundation where you keep adding things, hoping it'll fix the wobble. And so that's why a lot of people will get everything they've always wanted, technically, just to find out they're still wobbling and that it didn't solve anything. And so then they have to take it all apart, fix the wobble, and then build on top. And that's the condition, I think, of humanity right now, is that everybody's selling you the thing you need in order to fix your wobble. When in fact, your wobble is a simple human thing. It's not a complex problem. The complexity of human beings is the fact that in a lifespan of 100 years, you need to figure out all the beauty and all the magic that you're going to fit into this life. That's the only complex problem, really. Everything else is simple. We grieve, we feel pain, we feel sad, we feel overwhelm of emotions, we lack basic functions like sleep and digestion and nutrition. Those are basic human things that everybody goes through. Shelter problems, food problems, family issues. That is human. Everything else, it gets to be magical to have that. And so it's just keeping your eye on the big picture, that you don't need any of the big stuff to make you happy, but you get to experience them because you're human in today's day and age for a reason. You have access to the magic. You don't need the magic. You need the fundamentals that are so simple to get you solid so you can choose whatever you want. And you're not trying to have these things because they hold you up with your ego and they hold you up with your identity and they hold you up with your, because then if those things fall apart, we fear we'll crumble. But the other things, we have them. And if they ever fell away, we'd have ourselves, our back, and everything we needed. And that's how you know you can build something that's sustainable with joy in the back seat of the car, instead of overwhelm and constant thoughts and pressure and all the validation and need for success. Fulfillment, joy, well-being on top of a simply extraordinary life. And we can have it all. The stronger the circuit board, the more things you can plug into it. So the goal is strengthen the circuit board, make sure things are wired properly, and then you enhance your capacity and you can have anything you want.
Oh, that's huge. Thank you so much.